right here in the city of Lagos, the Center of Excellence. We will be talking about certain issues that happened, yesterday and of course previously. First of all, we'll be looking at the legal tussle, between the former Speaker of the House, I'm talking about Mudashiru Obasa, and of course the current Speaker of the House in the person of Mojisola Miranda. There is a legal tussle as regards how the removal took place. And we'll be looking further on the commotion that happened yesterday, or invasion, if you like, by the State Security Service, popularly known as DSS. And of course, unfortunately, though, their entry into the house was prevented or resisted by staff and, of course, lawmakers. We'll have a guest right here in the person of Barrister Jide Ologun, who will be bringing all the legal angles to this. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
All right, now let's look at the legal tussle. Already we know that there is a lawsuit that has been filed by the former Speaker of the House, Mudashiru Obasa, against the House itself and of course by extension the current Speaker in the person of Miranda. Now, what's your take on this? Because he made some very germane issues, in fact, a very damning allegation against the process for which he was removed. He has said previously, and he maintained, that he's not afraid or scared about either his impeachment or removal from office. But if any of those should happen, it must go through the right process. And then he made mention of the fact that the House itself was on recess when the removal took place. Aside from that, the procedures was a gross violation according to the procedures of the legislature. Now, he is also talking about fingering that the Commissioner of Police is also involved, perhaps aiding about 200 men that stormed his residence and, of course, the house. What's your take in all of this?
Thank you. Basically, the ousted Speaker has the fundamental human right to seek judicial interventions. And of course, when you seek judicial interventions, you present your own case. And he has presented his ground of discontent, particularly focusing on the procedures. And it's now for the court to look at the presentations, interpret the laws, and come to a conclusion. So I do not want to preempt the outcome of the court. But like he said himself, that when some principal officers were ousted from the previous House of Assembly in Lagos State, that they were present, that he was on recess, and that he did not authorize anybody to hold fort for him. But that should be for the court to interpret. And he also mentioned the presence of the police. But what I know is that the constitutional provision for the appointment and the removal of the Speaker of the House of Assembly and the Deputy Speaker can be found in Section 92 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, and it requires 2/3 votes of the members. And in the case of Obasa's removal, about 90% of the members of the House of Assembly came together to remove him from office. Again, that would be an issue. And specifically in the Constitution, there's no provision that says he must be physically present or not. And I expect that that should be resolved in line with the recommendation of Lord Hewart, who said in 1924 that justice should not only be done, but clearly seen to have been done. And by and large, there is a new Speaker in the House of Assembly of Lagos State. And like I said, about 36 out of the 40 members have pitched their tent in support of the new Speaker.
All right, so now let me pause you a little bit, because there are certain factors you have mentioned, for us to look at before we digress. You said in your statement that there is no condition in the law that says that the Speaker must be present at the time that the impeachment process or the removal is taking place. But do you also factor in the fact that he stated particularly that the House was on recess? So where did the impeachment process take place when the House was on recess?
Those would be issues to establish before the courts. and the court will determine the relevance of those claims. And by virtue of Section 131 of the Evidence Act 2011, if you allude before the court some facts, the burden of proof is on you. And how relevant those issues are is because according to the members of the Lagos State House of Assembly that removed him, they have followed the due process. So it's the position of those who removed him and the one who is removed. And like I said, basically when a matter is in court, we should not
be prejudicial in our statement.
So that is why I've presented the pictures. And of course, for those who want to check, read Section 92 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. You see what is clearly stated there. You see, so let's leave that to the court.
All right. So while we're trying to tread carefully because the case is in court, now let's look at the legal tussle in itself. Because a lot of persons are of the opinion that with the legal suit that he has filed, will it not somewhat cause some level of tension within the House and, of course, impeach or let's just say sort of create some sort of, with the word instability of some sort, from allowing proceedings to take place?
You know, already the House of Assembly has adjourned Senate Day, which means indefinitely, without giving a date of resumption. And talking about that, like I mentioned earlier, he has the right to seek judicial intervention in the matter. And whether that will destabilize the proceedings in the House of Assembly, that also has been overtaken by an event, an ugly event that happened, because I think he was removed on the 13th of January 2025, and the House has been sitting, you know, with the majority members declaring loyalty to the new Speaker of the House of Assembly, the person of Miranda. You see, so until the DSS invaded the House in court, and we are having several narratives now. DSS saying they were invited, they did not invade, to come and provide because they got an intelligence that Obasa was coming to reimpose himself as the speaker, because when Obasa came back from his vacation, addressing his supporters, he declared that he was still the speaker and that he rejected his removal as speaker. So we understand from reports that I think he was planning to resume back in office. So DSS, a narrative is claiming DSS came to prevent breakdown of law and order. And on the other side, some are saying that they were not invited, that they came to even actually aid him to step into office. There are several narratives from the grapevine. But you see, in law, we treasure precedents. I think on the 7th of August 2018, a similar scenario played out in the National Assembly when Bukola Saraki was the president of the Senate and Ekweremadu was the deputy Senate president. And there was some concerted effort to impeach Saraki then. The DSS came, Max DSS, came and barricaded the National Assembly. It was an ugly confrontation, and that was when the former President Muhammad Buhari was on 10-day leave out of the country. So what happened? That move was resisted. It became a national embarrassment, and the question then was, who sent you? And that was when we had Oga from above, you know. And what the acting president in the person of Osinbajo did was to sack the DG of DSS then, talking about Lawal. You see, so now we are having the desecration of the democratic institution, because the assignments of DSS include national intelligence gathering, protecting the president, governors, and of course, you know, security generally. But now that the DSS has become an instrument of infiltrating into democratic and governance processes, I think we should be concerned. And that is why many have considered this as a huge embarrassment again. But the question I ask is that, are politicians ever embarrassed? You know, I think is their way of operating, because what the rule of law says is that every individual and all institutions must be subject to the law. So one would have expected that the moment Obasa was removed from office, there was an action that can be challenged in the court. And if you go to court, let the court decide. Now we have an ugly encounter also in Osun State between the PDP and APC. APC trying to reinstate chairman and councillors to the local government secretariats, and PDP saying no, that you cannot implement that court decision. So you just find a situation where we have ridiculed our institutions for political interest. And if you look at the Constitution of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, the demarcation is clear. You have Section 4 that empowers the legislature to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria. That's what Section 4 says. You have Section 5 that empowers the president and the governors to hold the executive influence over the country. And you have Section 6 for the judiciary, clearly stated out. But when you begin to have extrajudicial activities like this, and quite a number of times without consequences for the players, it's disturbing. And the big question that should come to the minds of people is that, is this governance or otherwise?
All right, so while we talk about the shenanigans that happened at the House of Assembly yesterday, let's also look at one more time the issue that has been discussed earlier, talking about the legal tussle. Yes, we're trying to maintain status quo by not delving too deeply into the court proceedings, but then the House that came about in the removal of the former speaker, about more than two-thirds, voted, for his removal. Some persons are of the opinion that while he has already filed a case in court, stating the fact that his removal was unlawful, shouldn't there have been some sort of, will I say, allowing the current speaker to operate, but not at a full capacity, considering the fact that somebody is here alleging that his removal from office was unlawful? What's your take on that?
There's what we call status quo. Why you go to court is to redress a perceived injustice.
Yes.
So Obasa felt that he has been served and a dinner of injustice, and he went to court. And what I learned that the legal representation has done is to ask for accelerated hearing, which is in order. But as we speak, by virtue of status quo, and until the court pronounces, Miranda has become
the new
Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly. How? By virtue of the exercise of the powers confirmed on two-thirds of the membership of the House of Assembly,
regardless of the grievance
in
of
Section 92 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, specifically subsection 2. So, and that's why I said, let's leave that for the judicial juggernaut. So what is expected under the doctrine of the rule of law is that everybody should maintain that status quo. The courts cannot pronounce, and the House of Assembly will say, we will disrespect the pronouncement of the court. What can happen is that as soon as the High Court comes to a verdict, then the House of Assembly and the Speaker and the stakeholders can proceed to the appellate level to put on hold the execution of this. And that is assuming that the decision of the High Court does not favor Miranda. And since 1963, when we became a republic, Supreme Court has become the highest court in the land. Before 1963, if you are not satisfied when your matter gets to the highest level of Supreme Court, you can further appeal to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council of the UK. You see, so there are still cadres to go. But this practice of now bringing the rule of force is what is disturbing. It's either the rule of law or the rule of force. You see, and I've told us what the acting president did, Yemi Osinbajo, when a similar scenario played out in 2018, was to sack the DSS DG. Now, who, even though a school of thought came out that APC knew about it and that sack was just a cover-up, whatever it may be, please, let's respect the laws of the land. Things are not done this way. Things are not done. You saw what happened in South Korea. Procedures. I mean, we have monitored events in the UK. Boris Johnson was eased out as the Prime Minister. You see, and so I mean, these are concerns for me, and that's why you keep wondering: is it all about governance or about politicking and power play? You know, and again, on the flip side, allegedly, Obasa was removed from office based on some serious allegations of misappropriation of funds, high-handedness and things. Is anybody prosecuting him for that? And he has challenged them, prove it. So where exactly are we? So, I mean, and I made reference also while discussing a matter like this to the case of the former acting chairman of EFCC, Magu, who was removed from office successfully based on some critical criminal allegations. He was never prosecuted. Again, you saw how the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Anohe, was removed from office by the Bureau of on not declaring his assets or whatever, when Malami and his people came up with some sharp practices. At the end of the day, the man was removed from office. Well, he went to court and he won. You know, not through the judicial. At a point in time, the federal government, under this dispensation, invited him for dialogue, and that matter has been resolved. And I think, obviously, they were seeing the direction of where it was going. So these are, you can also bring in the case of Edo State, when Obaseki was at loggerhead with his deputy governor, and the deputy governor was impeached. But the guy sought a judicial intervention and he was reinstated. So these are, what I'm saying is that, please, let us earn respect for this country. All these, look at people, about 8 persons were killed in Osun State in the last 48 hours. Because some people just want to, it's ugly to reinstate people back to the office. And so those are my concerns. So and how I wish that this adrenaline is pumped towards giving us good governance in Nigeria. It should have been fantastic. That, okay, until we have 24-hour electricity, we are going to be beating each other in this House of Assembly and shouting and barricading. I'll be happy about that. And there must be health for all, bring down the price of petrol. That legislators will come out to say, no, the price of petroleum is too high. No, we are not going to see it. You know, these are, but when it comes to politics, they are on edge. I mean, you must have seen that video. Shouting and doing. In fact, in 2018, some of them scaled the fence with all their regalia and everything. Honorable. So, is it about governance or about politics? If it's about politics, I don't have any sentiment or sympathy for anyone, because what we deserve by virtue of Section 14 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, which every leader in elected office has sworn to, and every citizen owes allegiance, is that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government.
All right, so we are due for a break right about now. So when we return, we'll take in further issues on this matter. Please do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. And of course, if you're just joining us, we're on TMI talking about the illegality as alleged by the former Speaker of the House of Assembly in the person of Obasa. And we have a guest right here also giving us the legal angles to all of this. Now, before we dropped off, you were talking about power play here. And if it's not about governance, you pay no sentiment to such kind of, will I call it, shenanigans going on in the house. But now let's talk about power play. Some persons are of the opinion that what we saw yesterday, talking about the invasion of the DSS into such kind of prestigious premise, was a display of power, perhaps a political muscle in display, showing that he's still in charge and can also in some way collapse the structure that the Asiwaju-led government has over Lagos State. What's your thought on that?
You see, we can trace this matter. Constitutionally, the DSS is answerable to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. We are yet to establish state police in Nigeria. So who gave the order? That should be the first question. And that's why I referred to the 2018 case. So if this order did not come from the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, by delegation or otherwise, then who gave that order? That person should be held accountable. It's a simple thing. And that's why those who are in the school of thought that it's likely to be the President trying to, shake the table. Because some are claiming that Obasa is loyal to the President. The President was not consulted before he was removed. And,
the President or the Speaker?
The President was not consulted before Obasa was removed.
Okay.
Politically speaking now.
Right.
And even the Governance Advisory Council, the GAC, they are also divided. And they also have the issue of rotational, where you are from and things like that. So the DSS is not answerable to Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. No. But answerable to the federal government. So let somebody tell us exactly what happened. And if the DSS was invited by the Lagos State House of Assembly, let there be confirmation. But in Nigeria, there will be several deniers and counter deniers. But an ugly thing has been put out there, which is embarrassing, but not embarrassing to me, because in industrial psychology, there's what we call conditioning. Some of us are already conditioned to the fact that anything can happen within our political space.
Could I give the reason why you said earlier off air that politicians are shameless?
I didn't say they are shameless. I only said that they are hard to embarrass. For some of them, it's their way of life. In fact,
so they have no
when
shame.
there is no rancor, they are not comfortable. In fact, some of them probably go to the House of Assembly daily prepared for. We've seen the videos now. Chairs thrown in the National Assembly.
The other
Somebody
time we saw
was
a mace
beaten
being
to
taken
stupor.
out of the chamber.
Exactly. So these are issues. And that's why I'm asking, is it about governance? You saw what happened in the UK. Somebody became prime minister, looked at the mandate of office, and excused herself that no, I cannot cope. And she stepped aside. That is governance. Right now in Canada, Trudeau, the leader is thinking of stepping aside for a better hand to come in. Those are things we are talking about. But in Nigeria, you must hold on to that power at all costs. But at what cost to the citizens? With the level of poverty that we have? You see, so those are my concerns. And some are saying, TSS, all this your energy why don't you go and face the oil thieves? Go and face those who illegally mine our gold in Zamfara and ferry our resources out of the country. But again, did some not hear Honorable Shomoli, Senator Shomoli, former Governor Shomoli, telling us that they know the oil thieves and those who are, plundering our resources? So you just find, and you also know that some political offices in Nigeria, the moment you step in there, it's difficult to step out because of the largesse of office. But where is the place for the security and meaningful welfare of the citizens in all this? These are the questions. And whether we like it or not, this has caused some cracks in the APC. And we are talking about 2027. And you also need to be careful about your opponents. So, and some are also in the school of thought that as the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces on one side, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is also the leader of APC. He tried in Rivers State to strike a balance and restore peace, even though that has not been 100% successful, because basically there are constitutional provisions for conflict resolutions in governance. So these are issues. It's a very tight one, and you can see now the majority members of the Lagos State House of Assembly are saying we are behind Miranda. They have passed their vote of confidence. So it's not likely to be an easy thing. So, and what we learned in secondary school, and I'm sure you also learned it, is that we have separation of powers
within the arms of government.
Exactly, for the purpose of checks and balances. Yeah. So we are now having a confrontation to say, executive, stay where you are, mind your business. And that is why the likes of Atiku will come out and say, don't meddle in the affairs of this legislature.
But while we know
solve the national problems.
But while we know that there is some level of separation, it's not without the fact, especially considering the Nigerian political system, that the executive sometimes might have some level of influence. Considering
it's not sometimes.
Just a moment. Considering the fact that this is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed's base in Lagos, and we know to a large extent that he controls so much power, and so we're trying to play to the gallery. Don't you think so?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. But you see, power is transient. And what I can see now, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu should be very, very careful in approaching it. And I wish him the wisdom of Solomon. I'm speaking in code now, because when some of us monitor this trend, we go deep. So if you find majority of the members of the House of Assembly claiming that we have taken a decision and we will defend that decision, you need to approach it. And like I said, the powerful body in Lagos State politics, I made reference to it, the GAC, the Governance Advisory Council, they also appear to have been divided over this. And please, let all of us not forget that the principal concept of life is selfishness. Even the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. So that love starts with yourself. And from the love you have for yourself, you begin to share with your neighbors. And when you come to the political realm, you never can trust who is on your side.
You just stated earlier that a precedent has been set, following previous situations that has played out in various House of Assembly across the state. Is there anything that is likely to come out as regards who gave that order for the DSS to have invaded the house? If, as you alluded to, that the DSS is under the federal government, and what is the likelihood that if this doesn't go in the favor of Obasa, what is likely to happen for future elections, especially as regards 2027, as we custom, because we just have less than a minute?
That's why I have advised the president that, you see, sometimes you have more enemies than you think you have. So you should tread softly.
Enemies within the fold.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, there are always enemies within the fold. They are household enemies. So he needs the wisdom of Solomon. You know, the political realm is a very slippery realm, and you have to tread with caution.
Because his 2027 bid is at stake.
Exactly, particularly when the Northern Enclave is also aggrieved, that claiming that they are the power brokers.
So
even
this might
though,
just be a chess play.
Even though in the north, the likes of Ubasani and all of them are decamping to APC and everything. I think my advice is just to the electorate. Please don't enemize your friends because of any politician. You know, Atiku visited Obasanjo already in Abeokuta, so these guys are all friends.
Thank you so much.
But please bring prosperity to the citizens. That's my own concern.
Thank you so much.
You may fight. You're allowed to fight, but please restore prosperity to the land.
We're pressed for time, but I'm sure you will bring you here some other time. Thank you so much, Mr. Jide Logun.
God bless Nigeria.
Perspective. So that's our offering for you today on the show. We do hope that you've benefited 1 or 2 points from what he just said.